know how to create different techniques using watercolour to get different effects. So I've put some headings here and I'm just going to go through them. So the first one, wet on dry, means that you have you mix water with the paint, but the paint is wet, okay, and the surface of the paper is dry. So you usually put plenty of water into watercolours. I'm going to put fairly bright colours so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so nice sort of even brush strokes with watercolours. Okay, so that's fairly even from top to bottom. Right, now wet on wet is where you'll wet the paper first. So put plenty of water onto the paper. And then we can add some pigment to the surface and it becomes a lot more fluid. Okay, probably a little bit too much water. Okay, the next one is a splatter. Now to splatter, it's quite a good idea to put some water onto the surface first. Then you're going to get your brush and you're going to flick colour onto there. I'll add some different colours to this just to see what we can do to make it a bit more interesting. Okay, I've got a nice red here. Is it red? Yeah. Okay, so you get a nice effect that's completely different. So we've got 3 completely different effects using watercolour so far. Now, if you're using watercolours, always have some tissue. You're constantly drying your brush. You're constantly changing the water as well. I've got different pots of water here ready. Right, now a dry brush is when your brush is dry and you just put this into the paints where there's a little bit of moisture on the paint, but then when you drag across the surface you get a completely different effect. It picks up the texture of the paper, picks up the texture of the brush. Okay, I can go down the other way just to see what effects I can create. Okay, right, lifting off, I'm going to use the red again because it's fairly bright for you to see. The idea is that you put the pigment onto the page, usually better when the paper is dry. So imagine you have a bottle, so you might have the edge of a bottle. Okay, that's one side, there's the other side, that sort of effect. Now then you want to dry your brush as much as you can and then go back into this one side where you can take, I'm going to get a smaller brush actually for this. Get a smaller brush and you actually take the paint off the page. Okay, which creates a little bit of tone on that area there. Right, the next one, I've screwed up this paper firstly, so crinkled paper, scrunch up, and then you're going to add some pigment. So I'll start with a lightish sort of colour. You can mix colours so that they blend into each other. A bit of yellow. And so you can see you get the effect of the crinkles in the page. It's quite nice there with the red and orange, not quite so good where there's yellow, but that's because it's quite light. So you can add some pigment here just to see what happens. Okay, you just get that sort of effect, so that's quite nice. It's very bright. You might not want to work with such bright colours, but it's just more effective for you to see. Okay, this one then, wax resist. You can use a candle, you can use batik wax for this, or pencil crayons. I couldn't find a candle. I do have pencil crayons, so I've sketched out a very quick leaf using the pencil crayons. I'm going to go in again with a fairly dark, I'll go for a dark sort of blue. Okay, and the wax should resist the paint, so that's quite nice across there. Again, darken it down a little bit. Yep, okay, good. Wasn't sure if that was going to work, but it has. Okay, that's good. I did press on quite hard with the wax crayon because I wasn't quite sure if that was going to be okay. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of, just so that it's, you can mix your colours and just have fun with this really. I mean, it is an experimental page. This is not your final piece of work. Okay, here I'm going into some nice clean water now because my water's very dirty. I've got some salt, and what we can do now is put some watercolour pigment onto the page. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in there as well. Get a bit of blending. Then if we drop salt onto there, if you watch closely, it disperses the paint. You can see it moving away gradually. And the idea is that once you've let the paint dry, then you can scratch the salt off and you'll get an effect coming through. Okay, right, the last one then, cling film. So for this one, I would use quite a lot of water. Put some little bit of water onto the page and then put some colour into here. Again, a bit of a mixture. And the idea is you put some cling film onto the top there. Scrunch it up a little bit and leave that to dry. When this is pulled off, you'll get some really nice effects, similar to the crinkled paper, but they tend to be the opposite. This tends to be lighter in the areas where the cling film has been, whereas in the crinkles it goes slightly darker. Okay, so 9 watercolour techniques that you can try. Okay.